A very good evening to present here today. My name is Zainab Idris and I am moderator. I'm extremely pleased to welcome all of you to another session of the author's Saga. We are now live on Facebook, individuals joining in from many different areas and countries. Start by having a quick introduction about Pick a Book. Pick a Book encourages the habit of reading by getting participants to select a book, read and research on it thoroughly, and present a summary, which also helps to hone public speaking, communication, and presentation skills. By Pick a Book not only inculcates the habit of reading, but also helps to impart a wealth of knowledge. Currently, it has marked its inspiring presence in 4 countries: India, the UK, and Singapore, in just a year, with 600 plus readers, 18 regions, 1,000 people inspired. Pick a Book is spread its wings across the whole globe. Pick a Book recently begun a fantastic initiation called The Author. Through these sessions, authors will be able to reach them and individuals with like-minded interests. Authors have key insights of their book, and viewers will be able to take this. We hope to help authors inspire readers and aspiring authors as well on their journey. These will be inspiring sessions with authors to ensure that they can reach and encourage individuals to further their reading habit. Without any further ado, I'm pleased and thrilled to welcome our author guest for this evening, Andrew Fernando, who currently resides in the UK. Andrew Fernando is an author, journalist, and ESPN sports correspondent. He has won an award for his book, Upon a Sleepless Isle. This book, Travels in Sri Lanka by Bus and Rickshaw, is an exploration of a country by inspiring citizens. The book is of his 8-week journey through Sri Lanka, and through a comic lens, he explores the island's rich history. Here, Andrew dwells upon the country, exhibits awe and exasperation, often slips into humor. The book also gives glimpses of the wildlife in the country's reserves. Some of the book's more interesting sections include Andrew Fernando encounters with tourists from across the world and how they have and in this organization. Andrew also is and is specifically interested in travel, food, and history. So hi, Andrew. Welcome. So thrilled to have you here.
Hi, Zainab. Hi. Thank you so much for having me on. And thank you for that wonderful introduction to myself and the book. One thing, though, I don't live in the UK. I'm very much in Sri Lanka. I'm in the Himalaya at the moment, actually. So, yeah, I'm very much here.
All right, great. Okay, so let's actually start the session. And from our end, we're so delighted to have you discuss all about you and your amazing book. So actually, let's just dive right into it. So let's begin by talking a little bit about your childhood. So what were you actually like as a child? Were you always a reader or a writer?
Yes, I think always a reader. I think my mother was someone who encouraged us to pick up books at a very young age. And I was kind of the kind of kid who, had to be told to put the book away and go to sleep because I'd be in bed for hours reading. And so it was something that I loved from a very young age. Writing, I think I was always okay at it, but I never really considered it as a career choice or as something I would do for work until much later in life. So I think just from by dint of having read a lot of books when I was younger, my writing style probably naturally developed during those years. But I used to read all sorts, everything from Tintin and Asterix,
Any
which I think a lot of Asterix, probably Asterix in particular, I really enjoyed, and also the work of Roald Dahl during those years I really loved. There were a few others kind of going up through the I think Gary Pullman, I think. I wonder if I'm getting the author who did the Mr. Tucker series, which is kind of a Western series. A lot of kind of adventure books I really enjoyed. So Yeah, and adventure
Yeah,
and
I can
humor were
relate on
probably
the adventure aspect. Huge fan of Harry Potter right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I went through the Harry Potter books as well. Adventure and humor were probably the two that really genres that really appealed to me.
Amazing. Okay, so what actually inspired you to write the Sleepless Isle?
I there's a few things. I think first of all, when I was growing up in the 90s, so much of the country, so much of Sri Lanka was off limits because of the war. There were bombs, and even the parts of the country that you could travel to, it was very difficult to get to because the roads weren't good. But on top of that, there were checkpoints everywhere. The movement of people was very, very limited. And I used to look at the map of Sri Lanka and absolutely yearn to go. I've always been someone who wanted to travel and yearn to go to all these far-flung places in the world, from Mannar or in Sri Lanka, from Mannar to Jaffna to Yala to everywhere in the hill country. And my parents just weren't able to take us traveling. So then my family moved to New Zealand, and I spent 13 years in New Zealand. And when I came back as an adult, Sri Lanka had kind of suddenly become this global tourism hotspot. This is around 2012 when I came back, and all of these foreigners were traveling to all these places that I'd wanted to go to for 15 years, and that was one reason why I kind of undertook the travel. But to write about it, I also felt that during this time there wasn't a lot of homegrown writing on Sri Lanka, and some of the travel writing kind of maybe missed the mark a little bit for me. And so I wanted to kind of put that straight. And I was also a big fan of the travel writing genre. So for all those three things, it made sense for me to attempt a travel book, and I found it an incredibly rewarding experience.
Amazing. Okay, so actually, let's now that we've started experiences with traveling, let's dive a little deeper into that. So, actually, did traveling all over Sri Lanka in any way kind of change how you saw different cultures, religions, politics, and people in general and their behavior? Did it change any of your perspective, while you were traveling all around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I discovered a country, or not discovered, but I kind of experienced a country that was much more complex than I had bargained for. That was that we talk a lot about ethnicities and religions in the country. We maybe don't talk particularly in the English language about class as much, and how kind of each ethnicity and religion has a class element to it, and how those things change from region to region. There's all sorts of regional contentions as well, and so many more fault lines than I'd kind of bargained for. You kind of think about the main Sri Lankan fault lines being around kind of language and ethnicity, but there's a lot more going on, and even within kind of groups that you assume, for example, in the north, you assume that north is maybe not a monolith, but that people will be very similar from all over the north. But you go to somewhere like Mannar, you go to somewhere like Jaffna, the two places in some ways couldn't be further apart, in terms of their general vibe and their general kind of the general feeling you get when you're there, and the kinds of conversations you have, and the kind of interactions you have with people. I think all of those things, I think I also realized how, while there are so many fault lines, I also realized, how much common humanity there was. You go to a place of worship like Katharagama or Madhu Church in Mannar, and you realize, all these people come there for similar reasons, from various religious backgrounds, come there hoping for the same sorts of things for their families, for their children, for kind of general well-being. And while there is a lot that divides us, I was also struck at the chances, at the places at which I discovered kind of, or I experienced concord between various Sri Lankan people, and how similar a lot of our stories were, even if we tell those stories in different languages.
So I will, kind of with the hopes of writing a book, with the mindset that, okay, I want to travel, I want to see everything, or were you planning on, the book with all of that as well?
No, I think I was definitely keen on writing the book as I traveled, partly because I think writing for me is a way to make sense of the world. You know, I if I think about something and write about it, I think that's kind of my full, you know, personal expression coming out. So I found it, even if what I was writing didn't turn into a book, it was still rewarding for me to go through that process to make sure that I perceived as much as I could, that I had as many interesting conversations with as many different people from as wide a cross section of society as I could, and to try and put all that information through, to think about all of that and work out, you know, what kind of country I called home. And it was, I very much went with the intention of writing a book. It took a little while for it to come together, but that, you know, I was definitely taking notes and working towards a substantial kind of piece of writing by the end of it.
All right, yeah, of course, great. Okay, so moving on, was it actually a tough or like kind of a challenge for you to integrate so much of Sri Lanka's western side, while also, you know, keeping the focus and on the country's ancient roots?
I guess, yeah, it is. It does sometimes. It is sometimes tricky to reconcile those two things. I was probably more interested in how modern religion kind of, especially when it came to Buddhism, you know, I went to Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa, for example, particularly in Anuradhapura, working out how religion was practiced, you know, in ancient times, and trying to figure out what has changed, if anything, in the modern era, and also going to somewhere like an Adam's Peak, and trying to work out how particular teachings in various religions, how they kind of manifest themselves in people's day-to-day behaviors, and if they don't kind of match up, if the teachings don't match up with the day-to-day behaviors, what is the reason for that? And I think I was interested in finding those things out. There's also kind of, you know, Sri Lanka sees two different kinds of writing, which is very kind of grave and depressing writing on ethnic tensions and conflict, and, you know, us having had a war for the better part of 30 years, and also more recently this kind of like travel brochure writing, which is kind of, you know, the beaches, the mountains, the wildlife, the marine life, all of those things, you know, the food painted in kind of very saccharine, almost like overly sweet and overly kind of exoticized terms. And I wanted to try and bring these two things together and work out how to reconcile this Sri Lanka that we kind of love traveling in, that we love living in, and the kind of generosity that we see from people on a daily or monthly basis, to you know, how to reconcile that with the incredibly deep and kind of ugly tensions that we often have. And I think that was probably the biggest challenge in trying to reconcile, you know, why it is that a country that on the surface is so beautiful, is so livable, is so appealing, also has so much pain and so much trauma, often self-inflicted. And I think that was a question that I really tried to answer, and at times struggled to answer, because I don't think it's an easy question to grapple with, but it's something that I kind of tried to get closer to the truth about, and I was really interested in writing about that.
Of course, yeah. So you kind of either managed to, you know, bring in all the elements and all of that into your book, yeah, in the end of it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure that any of these questions were kind of fully or like satisfactorily answered in any book, but I guess our job as writers is to try and kind of reconcile it as much as we can, try and get as close to the truth as we can, and figure out, you know, why it is we have you know, both the good and evil in our country in such kind of extreme, they constantly throw, you know, each other into relief in such extreme fashion sometimes. And I think I did. I mean, I think I did to a level that I was happy with. I think I did answer that question.
All right, amazing. Okay, so, and finally, actually, can we get from you about specifically why you read personally, and, you know, what also piece of advice you have for aspiring authors such as yourself, and even traps that you might like to guide them through and, you know, advise them on as well?
Yeah, I hesitate to give writing advice often because it's my kind of writing journey is something that worked for me, and I'm not sure that I've had a lot of writing advice from various people. Most of it is really really well intentioned, but a lot of it didn't work for me because my brain fires in a different way than everybody else's does. My neurons fire in different ways. Different things inspire me. Different things frustrate me, or get me into the space where I need to write. So I'll just talk about. I'll just frame this as things that work for me. I think a lot of writers say the first thing you should do if you're hoping to write a book or something substantial, or to be a writer professionally, is to do a lot of reading. And I would just add to that and say, read widely but wisely. So that's something that's worked for me, where I read a huge variety of genres, but I try and pick out the best kind of iterations of each of those genres. I think that kind of helps develop a wide field of vision in terms of what you can do as a writer. You approach a subject being like, okay, this writer did approached it in this manner, this writer approached it in this manner. What is it that's going to work for me? I would also say, write widely, or try different styles. That's something that I tried to do as well. Is write, humor, to write, dramatic paragraphs, to write something that's kind of packed with a lot of emotion. To write something that's kind of really dense and heavy, to write something that skips along much faster. All of those things, if you practice writing in different styles, then and develop all of those tools, then once it gets to a stage where you need to write something major, something substantial, you have all these tools to call upon at different times. You can make a joke when there needs to be a joke. You can get really serious and write political analysis if that's what needs to happen, or you can really connect with someone and write about their life experiences in a way that's kind of emotionally resonant to them, and hopefully will be emotionally resonant to your audience. So I think just to develop a wide range of tools. And the other thing is just to persevere and not be, writing can often be very depressing. You're staring at a blank page, and you're expected to kind of make something out of nothing often. And if you stared at the blank page long enough, it kind of becomes even harder to fill it up. So to try and work through this, try and get your best ideas down first, so at least you have something on the page. Try and get something you're excited to write about down. In the first 5-10 minutes you're sitting in front of the computer, or you're writing in your notebook, or however you choose to write. And then to kind of, if you're putting your work up for evaluation by other people, whether it's an editor or somebody else, rejection is a part of a life as a writer. I've had many rejections. People saying the work isn't good, or sometimes it is because the work's not good. Sometimes because they're not the right editor for that particular piece or for that particular story. So it's just to try and work through all of those failures and make sure that and just try and understand that if you work hard enough at it, and you work smartly enough, you will probably get to a stage where you're much more confident as a writer, and your inner voice kind of shines through, and you become a much better writer at the end, and hopefully it all works out.
Amazing. All right, thank you so much for the advice. So actually we have a few questions popping up that I see here. One YouTube channel. So actually it's from Rajiv. So how different was Sri Lanka when you came back from any differences that you saw specifically?
Oh, I mean, incredibly different. So I mean, we left in '99, and then I came back in 2012. And so, I mean, just by the fact of there not being a war happening, it was incredibly different. I think obviously there was a lot more freedom of movement, and I think there'd been quite a lot of kind of infrastructure development as well, particularly in the 3 years after the war, and that's continued to happen. So something like traveling around, and you were amazed at all the new roads that had gone down. And how much easier it was to travel. Traveling around Sri Lanka was really easy for me. and just how connected everything had become. I would turn up at a town without having a room booked, and I'd just go on booking.com and book one at the bus stop, and then turn up there 10 minutes later. And I don't think those kinds of things, obviously Sri Lanka becoming kind of much more globally connected, and to things like booking websites allows you to do that kind of travel. And I think that would have been unthinkable in my kind of when my parents were growing up, or when I was much younger. It would have been almost impossible to do something like that. And then I think when you have the kind of war that we did, you also end up with lots of kind of deep resentments and divisions. So that would have changed as well through the course of my time away. And I talk a little bit about that and what that means through the book.
Right, amazing. And so the second question we have is actually from WhatsApp groups. It's a big book WhatsApp group. And Praveena, do you believe, or have you ever experienced personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think every writer probably has gone through it. I definitely have. I think I've got better at dealing with it. I think I don't necessarily get as down about it as possible, because I think when you go through it enough times, when it first starts happening, it feels like you have these huge self-doubts, and you're like, am I a good writer? Am I just a fraud? Will I ever be able to write again? But when you've been through it a few times, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be fine in a few days' time or in a few hours' time, however long it takes. And this is what I need to do. Generally, I go and do something else that I enjoy. Often it's cooking. I really enjoy cooking, so I go and do that for a little while. Or I'll go diving or scuba or traveling for a little while and try and get over it that way. So I think I know now that after a little while it's going to be fine, and it's not going to last forever. So I'm better at working through it now.
All right, great. Just a follow actually of my own based on that one. You have specific times that you write, like you personally think that the God sent times for you to write, anything like that for you?
Yeah, I do actually. I generally write when I have huge pieces of writing to kind of tackle. I generally write from about 11 p.m. to about 5 a.m. It's probably my general writing time. So yeah, I'm very much I work through the night often. And then a lot of this book got written, I think, because it's the first book, you can't take that much time off work to write it. It got written either between I do a full day of work and then spend time at home and then start writing about 11 and work till about 4 or 5. Or I would wake up really early, wake up at about 3 a.m., work till about 7 or 8, and then do a full day of work. So that was how this book got written. It was just weeks and weeks of that kind of schedule. But that's normal. I think for a first book, you do really have to you really have to bust your gut for the first book. And that's, yeah, it was, I look back on that time, I think it was pretty fun. Maybe at the time I wasn't finding it that fun, but I look back on it with a little bit of funness, actually.
All right. Okay. And last question is actually from Fidel. He's asking, what element of your writing do you find interesting and or appealing to your viewers? Is it the...
Yeah, I mean, humor is the first thing that drew me into writing. I wanted to make people laugh. Yeah, that was it's almost like a weakness, I can't not crack a joke. If there's a joke to be said, sometimes I have to edit my jokes out because it's coming in the middle of a dramatic paragraph, and the paragraph really works better without the joke. But it's that's really one of the things I enjoy writing the most is humor. But I think if I can kind of give myself another couple of kind of strengths to my writing, I'd say I'm good at painting pictures as well. I'm quite a descriptive writer, and then I also kind of have a natural affinity for rhythm, which makes kind of paragraphs skip along or slow down when I need them to slow down, or speed up when I need to speed up. That's something I never really had to work on because I kind of naturally had it. So yeah, I think those are probably the three things that I would see as like, things that that they're the things that I feel the most confident about in my writing.
All right, amazing. I love the humor aspect, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Okay, actually, with that, we have come to the end of our session. This extremely inspiring conversation. I'm sure I'm going to read this book. The viewers will as well. So we'll display a QR code at the end. So we have come to the end of the Saga session, which is actually a part. So once again, Pick a Book encourages the reading habit by participants to select a book, read and thoroughly, and present a summary, which also helps to hone his or her public speaking, communication, and action skills. By doing this, Pick a Book not only the habit of reading, but also helps to impart a wealth of knowledge. Part of the Pick a Book community, and if you want to see Pick a Book and join the journey of inspiring millions of people, out to us and send us an email via the ID present on the screen, and we are eagerly waiting to hear from you. My name is Zain, and I am the moderator for this evening, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. It was just a brilliant session. I'm moderating this one.
Thank you. Thanks, Zainab. Really appreciate it. This is what the book looks like, by the way, for anyone who's not seen it.
I'm extremely looking forward to reading it. Wow.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take it easy. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Good night.